Full bios of Mitch and the rest of the speakers today are in your folder, so I'll give an abbreviated introduction. Mitchell Erickson facilitates the Department of Homeland Security's science and technology activities with other federal, state, and local agencies, and with first responders in the Northeast from New Jersey, where I now live and work, to Maine, where I was born. He works with appropriate organizations in the Northeast to integrate vertically among the various organizations and horizontally across all threats. He facilitates science and technology projects within the region, such as field tests. He provides a conduit to subject matter experts for government homeland security agencies and first responders. He also evaluates current practices that could be improved by application of new technologies, models, systems, or approaches, and where science and technology can contribute to help close these homeland security gaps. There's more information on Mitch and the other speakers in your folder, so without further delay, here's Mitch Erickson to speak on resiliency of our physical and social infrastructure. Thanks.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Okay. Audience participation here, and welcome to our foreign guests, and welcome to everybody. I'm going to talk about resiliency. The context of this is that I think it's the necessary step as we think about how we deal with climate change to be able to cope with the near term as we're thinking about the longer term. And so I just want to first of all talk to you a little bit about infrastructure. And that's pretty indicative of a lot of infrastructure. Another way to look at it is this is just a plot of lane miles at the bottom in U.S. highways and various usage factors in the three upper ones. And surprise, surprise, the highways are getting more crowded. They're getting more tons of freight and so forth. Not a surprise to anyone in this room, and in fact anyone who ever drives on the highways anywhere, certainly in America and probably most everywhere in the world. We also have facing a challenge of things aging. For those of you from out of town, that's the Tappan Zee Bridge, which is about 30 miles north of here. It's the newest bridge in the New York metro area, crossing major waterways, crosses the Hudson River. It's also the one that's in most need of repair. So the newest bridge needs to be replaced first, and that's sort of a backwards logic, but that's what happened in the 1950s when they built that on the cheap. There's just a random picture of a highway interchange, our interstate highway system, which celebrated its 50th anniversary here a couple of years ago, is aging, and we all know that from the potholes we drive over every day. So lots and lots of challenges. There's also challenges in the complexity. This is something known as Exit 14 on the Jersey Turnpike. And for the locals, you know and love this. This is right next to the Newark Airport. For the people who are not so familiar, if I can see this correctly, the Newark Airport over there, you can see right here the intersection of two major highways, some parking, air freight, and the runways. And right over here, you're already into the finger piers for the Port of Newark. So in that, if you go here to here, which is what, maybe 200 or 300 meters, you go from water to rail to highway to airport, and buried somewhere in there is a gas pipeline. So a lot of complex infrastructure right in one place. This is a place the politicians love to advertise as the two most dangerous miles of in the United States. But there's the reason for pointing this out is that our people have done an interdependency study on the various critical infrastructure components. You know, if this thing were to have be shut down or something for some sort of an emergency, and surprise, surprise, water, power, communication, transportation, all of those are interdependent, and all of those are necessary for the port to function. So, for instance, going back upstream from there at sea level to where the source of the water supply is, and all the interconnected water mains and aqueducts in order to supply water for that area. Similarly with communications and power, and surprise, surprise, there are single points of failure in the communications infrastructure that represent vulnerabilities. So I just also want to talk to you a little bit about the fact that we do have disasters. Every day there's a disaster going on. This is from a year ago. I'm going to toggle back and forth because this is yesterday. So focus on the Northeast for a second. Okay, now focus in the center of America. Now focus on the West Coast. And you can see that those change, but that any given time, and I'm going to get to the current one, any given time about 20% of America is under a presidentially declared disaster. That means that there is a cadre of FEMA people working at all of those little squares. That means that there's funding going out to individuals and communities to compensate them for the loss of whatever the disaster is. And the point is that this is just all the time. This is not something that happens with Katrina or 9/11 or some of the other big things. All the time we have these kinds of disasters going on, and there's a mechanism in place to deal with them. There are dedicated people. FEMA has about 10,000 hourly employees that work at these various offices, and it's actually very amazing. They set these things up in 72 hours, and they go from bare rental space to a full-blown office. It ain't deluxe. You're talking Costco tables here, but they're up and running, full IT support and everything. Anywhere from maybe 20, 30 people up to a couple of thousand mixed federal and state employees. So very cool. This is just a year ago over in Japan, and all of these terrible things that happened with the earthquake and the tsunami. And much more important than what you see there is this. This is the human suffering that goes on in these things. So we need to be mindful of this. We need to be mindful of how we prepare for these things. And how we develop some resiliency, and then going on forward, that prepares us for climate change that might be coming in 10, 30 years. Or if you've been in New Jersey in the eastern half of the United States this year, we're kind of having global warming all winter this year. So, but it's also a matter, so there's natural disasters, and there are the terrorist disasters. But I submit that there's another, and then this is the stuff that we do to ourselves. And that's a picture of the Northeast in August of 2003, and that whole little segment is black. Where's my pointer? There we are. Right there, that segment of including, I wasn't here, I was over in New York where it was black. Was Newark dark on that day? Yeah, okay. And where I live, about 20 miles west of here, was not affected by the blackout. But 60 million people were without power for a period of time. This is the economic meltdown of a couple of years ago. And finally, there's just a snapshot of something from the Gulf oil spill of 2010. And the thing that's common about all three of those is we did that to ourselves. No terrorists did that. Mother Nature didn't have a hand in it. We did it to ourselves. And in the end, the person you really need to worry about is this guy. And always gets a laugh. But in all seriousness, we have episodes of incompetency. We have episodes of people falling asleep at the job. And so, we do have to worry about that. Real quickly, the bureaucracy of my organization, which is the Science and Technology part of the Department of Homeland Security. I'm not going to show org charts, but particularly for the benefit of our foreign guests, Department of Homeland Security is our Coast Guard, our emergency management, our customs, our citizenship, transportation security, the other people you know and hate in the airport that make you take off your shoes. And the science and technology part of that is a few hundred people among the 230,000 employees who work to try and improve that so that eventually you won't have to take off your shoes. So eventually we can, scan, goods and service goods that come in through ports, make sure that there's nothing bad in them. So we're in the knowledge business and innovation, And I'm going to focus on resiliency. So here's a definition. Individual, community, system, all right? Adaptability and capacity for recovery. So it doesn't say that you're going to stand up there and not get blown over. It says you're going to be able to get back up on your feet and running with a minimum amount of time loss. An official document from us, again, that is, but the vision for Homeland Security is safe, secure, and resilient against terrorism in the hands and protect our interests, aspiration, and the way of life. So, you know, that's kind of a nice way of thinking about it. But see, right away, you know, safe and secure, but resilient is one of the three words that's in the vision for what we do here in my world. Putting it another way, here's a think tank thing, and basically, if we're resilient, terrorists will think twice about attacking just because there's no bang for the buck if we can come right back. And if you think about 9/11, one of the really cool success stories out of that whole episode, and it's tragic as it was the fact that the stock markets opened the next Monday. That was huge because, you know, the terrorists thought that they were going to cripple the economy, and, you know, the next Monday we were back in business, and that was so I'm a chemist by training, Mr. Science. You got to have a science plot, right? So the plot is, this is time along here, and this is some sort of capacity. And this capacity could be lane miles, it could be hospital beds, it could be communications, it could be bits per second, doesn't matter, whatever it is. You're going along, a disaster happens, and your capacity, in this case we lose 2/3 of our capacity. You spend a period of time cleaning up the mess, and then you rebuild. Now, the science part of this is really cool stuff here. Okay, you integrate the area in that well, and that's your loss. All right? To reduce the loss, you can harden it, so you raise the floor there. You can sweep up the mess a little faster, or you can change the slope of that line. And any of those three combine to give you a smaller area and a smaller loss. So what you want to do is harden. You can gain a little bit by cleaning up faster, but your big bang is in your resiliency is changing the slope of that line so you get it done faster. And the slope of that line is dependent upon somewhat on technology, but more and more it is dependent upon money, financial will, legal issues, insurance, and a whole bunch of things that are outside of the scope of what I'm talking about today. But nevertheless, that's kind of just a vision about how you think about resiliency. Talk a little bit about tunnels, because we've done a lot of cool things. Underwater tunnels are a big deal, and there's a big threat against them. For those of you local, I believe that is the PATH tunnel back in before 1907 when they first took their ticket, and before their first ticket, and before they put any of the cabling and stuff in it. And these are other tunnels. I believe that's Moscow subway. But there's a real threat to underwater tunnels where if there's a bomb that goes off in a train car, you breach the tunnel itself, and the entire ocean can come in and fill up this tunnel. And because there's lots of other things that are below sea level, you wind up with the thing flooding not just that piece right there and doing damage to that piece and killing whoever's in that tunnel, but you get up over. So if, for instance, you take the PATH tunnels that go across the Hudson from New Jersey to New York, there are connectors between that and the whole MTA subway system, and you'll flood a certain percentage of that. So the question is number one, how big is that threat? And number two, what do you do about it? So the first thing you do is you categorize your various tunnels, and they range from brick, yes, there are brick tunnels out there, through cast iron, which is the majority of the PATH tunnels,